So this video is referring to the GCSE Computer Science Control Assessment, and the last section of your report is the testing and evaluation section, and the very last thing you're expected to do is to write an evaluation of your project. This is looking at what you have to do is prepare an evaluation of how the solution meets the needs, the original needs of the user, and the criteria that you're getting assessed on here. There is an evaluation discussing how the final solution meets the original needs of the user. The evidence is accurately spelt, punctuated, and grammatically correct to make the meaning clear. The form and style of writing is appropriate, information is clearly organized, and specialist vocabulary has been used appropriately. So although it might seem like you've been evaluating as you go, so as you're writing a computer program, generally what you're doing is you're testing and you're refining as you go along. They do expect you to kind of write or provide written evidence at the end, and it has to be a discussion, so it has to be kind of full written prose that explains how the program that you've written meets the needs of the user. So what I'm going to be doing is referring back to my Noughts and Crosses example that I used for the user needs analysis. And the best way to start is you've broken down what the needs of the users are. So take what you've prepared for the first section of your report and start by using that as a template for the last section. So the way that you work this out is the way that you should prepare this. So I will now evaluate how my final solution, so I will now evaluate how well my final solution meets the original needs of the user. And the way you do this is you need to refer to the code that you've written. So this is my implementation of Noughts and Crosses. And also you should be kind of drawing from your test plan, so your evidence for 4.1, and showing how the tests that you've made on your program prove that it works and prove that it meets the needs of the user. So the kind of thing I'm doing, so select the square. So the user needs to be able to do this. So I met this user need by making it so the program asks the user to enter coordinates relating to a position on the grid where the player wishes to play their X. And then, so here you would refer to your test plan, so C 4.1.1 for evidence of meeting this criterion. Criterion. So remember, no spelling mistakes because you're having to write with good grammar, etc. Spelling, grammar. So the next one, be informed if they have selected invalid square. So I met this user need by making the program detect if the coordinates entered by the user selected a non-blank square. The program was also able to check if the user had entered an invalid range square. If this was the case, the program informed the user of the problem and asked them to re-enter. Using a while loop, the program did not continue until the user selected a valid square. The program does not continue until the user selects a valid square. Again, so refer to your test plan, so C 4.1.2 and 4.1.3 for evidence of meeting this requirement. So the next user need was that the user needed to be able to see the grid at various points in the game. I created a function named, let me see what it was called. Okay, print board, and you see my function print board was called from the main loop in the game. So every turn after the player or the computer had made the move, the board was printed to keep the user kind of up to date on the status of the game. So I created a function named printGrid. Technically, it's a procedure because it doesn't return a value. So I created a procedure named printGrid that displays the current board to the user. This procedure is called after every turn, player and computer. So again, refer to the test plan, see 4.1.9 and 4.1.10 for evidence of this. So see when the user is required to see when the game is ended. So when the game ends, my program detects this and exits the main loop. So again, just brief. So see 4.1.11 for this. And this next one, after the game has finished, the program displays a message to the user informing them whether they have A, won, B, lost, or C, drawn the game. C 4.1.12 to 4.1.15. The next one, see where the computer has played their naught. So as aforementioned, after every turn the computer makes, the print grid procedure is called. This allows the user to see the updated board so they can see which square the computer has chosen. So at this point, some of the program requirements that are kind of not directly linked to the user's needs, you would also be expected to evaluate. So for example, this one, find an empty square for the computer to place its O. So my program randomly selects squares on the grid until it finds an empty square to use. So again, see 4.1.4. So in this one, because it's kind of linked to the previous test, again, just reiterate. So the print grid procedure is in 4.1.9 and 4.1.10. So some of these requirements, so they're not directly related to the needs of the user, and we've already covered this one, and we've already talked about allowing the user to enter their thing. So let's just talk in a little bit more detail about how we met these requirements. So using a for loop, my program is able to detect if the game has been won. It looks at each row, column, diagonal in the grid, and if it finds that all three positions contain the same character, the game ends and the user is informed whether or not they have won. So again, see. So this would refer in your test plan to various evidence showing different circumstances in which the game has won or lost. Okay, and this stuff is already covered. So detect to draw, we've talked about this. So in this, again, may not cover everything, but this should kind of give you some guidelines as to what you need to do when you're writing your evaluation. So you're referring to your test plan and back to the original needs of the user.